The journey to recovery was never going to be easy. This dog had suffered too long, endured too much. His body was frail, his mind traumatized, and his spirit battered by years of neglect. Yet, as the days passed, something incredible began to happen. He was no longer bound by chains, but the scars of his past still lingered deep inside him. In his new home, he had a soft bed, fresh water, and the comfort of a safe space. The world outside was vast, full of new sights, smells, and sounds. But it was also overwhelming. For so long, his world had been confined to a small, narrow space. The open spaces were a challenge, an unknown territory he had never dared to dream of. Each day, the team worked with him gently, slowly introducing him to the joys of life that had once been taken from him. They gave him time to trust again, time to heal. The rescue workers didn't rush him. They understood that true healing couldn't be forced. It had to be earned, one step at a time. With each passing day, the dog grew stronger, physically and emotionally. His fur began to shine again, his eyes became brighter, and a new sense of curiosity began to take over. But more than that, there was a change in his heart. It was as if the freedom he had fought for so long was starting to seep into his soul, helping him remember what it was like to be truly loved and cared for. The first signs of trust. It wasn't long before the dog began to show the first signs of trusting the people who had rescued him. It started with little things, small gestures that spoke volumes. He would approach one of the team members cautiously, his tail flickering nervously behind him. He wouldn't make eye contact at first, his eyes still filled with fear. But little by little, he began to inch closer, his curiosity overcoming the walls he had built around himself. One day, as the team worker sat on the floor, gently speaking to him, he did something that no one had expected. He walked up and placed his head in her lap. It wasn't much, but for the team, it was everything. It was a sign that he was beginning to heal, that he was starting to trust again. The rescue worker's eyes filled with tears as she stroked his head, whispering words of encouragement. "You're safe now," she said softly. "You're home." It was a moment of pure connection, a moment that could never be taken away. And in that moment, the dog's heart began to open just a little bit more. Learning to play again. One of the hardest parts of rescuing an animal who has been chained for so long is teaching them how to be a dog again. This dog had forgotten what it was like to play, to run, to enjoy the simple pleasures that every dog deserves. But over time, the team introduced him to toys, soft squeaky balls, fluffy stuffed animals, and the long-forgotten joy of chasing after a ball. At first, he didn't know what to do. He would look at the toys with confusion, not sure how to interact with them. But slowly, something inside him clicked. The joy of play started to return. He would cautiously nudge the ball with his nose, then watch as it rolled away. His instincts, buried deep inside him, began to emerge. Soon, he was chasing after the ball with all the energy he had left, wagging his tail excitedly, his eyes filled with wonder. It wasn't just play, it was freedom. The dog had rediscovered the joy of movement, the joy of running, of feeling the wind in his fur. Every step was a victory, a small triumph over the years of confinement that had tried to break him. And with each passing day, the bond between the dog and his rescuers grew stronger. But as much as he was learning to trust and enjoy his newfound freedom, there was still a part of him that carried the weight of his past. At times, he would retreat to a corner, his eyes distant and sad. He wasn't ready to fully let go of the fear that had been ingrained in him for so long. But each time he retreated, the team would give him the space he needed, always there, always patient, always ready to offer comfort when he was ready. The emotional breakthrough. Then came the day when the dog had his emotional breakthrough. It was a sunny afternoon, and the rescue team was sitting outside, enjoying the warmth of the sun. The dog had been running around the yard, chasing a ball, and he seemed to be more relaxed than ever. But as the day wore on, the team noticed that he was lying quietly in the grass, watching them with soft, trusting eyes. One of the team members, a woman who had spent countless hours with him, approached slowly. She knelt down beside him, offering him her hand. And for the first time, the dog didn't hesitate. He stood up, walked over to her, and gently placed his head in her lap. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "You're finally free. You've made it." In that moment, the dog looked up at her, his eyes filled with something more than just gratitude. There was love there and trust, and the understanding that he had found his place in the world. This wasn't just the end of his rescue story. It was the beginning of his new life. A life full of freedom, love, and hope. And the journey wasn't over yet. There were still many steps to take, many hurdles to overcome. But in that moment, the dog had taken the most important step of all. He had learned to trust again. And with that trust, he had found a new family, one that would love him. 6 years. 6 long years of isolation, pain, and suffering. For 6 years, his world was reduced to nothing but the cold, unforgiving chain that bound him to an empty, silent corner of the world. He was alone, with only the sounds of the wind, the rustling of leaves, and the echo of his own desperate cries. His body was bruised and broken, but his spirit? His spirit refused to die. This is the heartbreaking story of a dog who lived in agony, day after day, but refused to give up on the one thing that kept him alive. Hope. Hope that one day, someone would hear his cries. Hope that one day, someone would come to save him. Imagine the desperation. Imagine the tears that never fell, because he had no one to share them with. But despite everything, despite the harsh reality of his suffering, this dog held on to the one thing that kept him breathing. The tiny flicker of hope that one day he would be free. Introduction to his rescue. It was a regular day for the rescue team. But for the dog, it would mark the beginning of a new chapter. The rescue team had received a tip about a dog who had been chained for years. When they arrived, they could hardly believe what they saw. This wasn't just a dog. This was a soul that had been trapped in a nightmare for longer than anyone could comprehend. They walked toward him cautiously, unsure of what they were about to face. The chain was thick, rusted, and buried deep into the ground. The poor animal's fur was matted and filthy, his eyes dull and lifeless. He looked up at them, not with fear, but with a quiet surrender. For a moment, the team stood frozen, their hearts breaking for this forgotten soul. His eyes told a story of loss, of longing, of years spent waiting for someone, anyone, to come for him. But when the team spoke to him, when they gently called his name, something remarkable happened. His ears perked up. His tail, so long forgotten, gave the faintest of wagging motions. It was a sign that despite everything, despite the years of torment, he still remembered what it felt like to feel hope. "I'm here now," one of the rescue workers whispered, gently approaching the dog. "You're not alone anymore. We're going to get you out of here." The pain of being chained. For those of us who are fortunate enough to experience freedom every day, it's hard to imagine what life is like when you are chained, physically, mentally, emotionally. This dog had no freedom. He had no room to run, no space to play, no comfort of a bed or the love of a family. His entire existence had been reduced to this small, cruel space, his only company the rustling wind and the endless passage of time. Every day was the same for him. He could only sit and wait, the chain cutting into his flesh, digging deeper as the years went by. His body had grown accustomed to the pain, to the constant pressure of the chain, but his heart had never given up. He still dreamed of running. He still dreamed of feeling the grass beneath his paws, of basking in the warmth of the sun, of living a life full of love and joy. And yet, the cruel reality of his situation never let him have a taste of that dream. He was trapped. But even in the darkest of moments, this dog never stopped believing that one day someone would come to save him. The first step toward freedom. When the rescue team finally approached him, he didn't flinch. He didn't shrink away in fear. It was almost as if he knew. He knew that this was it. This was his moment to be free. The team moved cautiously, not wanting to spook him, not wanting to cause him any more pain. The rusted chain was difficult to remove, but they didn't give up. They worked together, their hands shaking, their hearts heavy with emotion. This was more than just a rescue. This was a lifeline. This was the first step toward giving this dog a future. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the chain was broken. For the first time in 6 years, this dog was free. Free from the weight that had been crushing him for so long. He took his first tentative steps, his legs weak from years of confinement. It was a struggle, but with each step he grew stronger. And with each step he was reborn. But there was something more. Something even more beautiful than his physical freedom. It was the look in his eyes. The spark that had been missing for so long was back. It was a look of hope, a look of triumph, a look that said, "I am still here. I am still alive. And I will survive." And just like that, this dog had tasted freedom for the first time in years. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was his. And that was all that mattered, ending with a powerful moment. As the rescue team helped him into the vehicle, he turned one last time to look at the place that had been his prison for so long. For a moment, his eyes were full of sadness, but also of relief. He was leaving that painful past behind him, and he was stepping into a future that was full of promise.